I am here with two dear people in my world, Michael Gayner and Dhi Good. Dhi Good sounds like exactly the superhero name of a director of Drala Mountain Center. So first of all, Dhi, maybe you could explain what the heck is Drala Mountain for people who don't know.
Well, we're in northern Colorado on about 600 beautiful acres in a fairly hidden mountain valley. And we host a lot of meditation programs, yoga, art things. And it's just a magical place to be. And it has an amazing sacred architecture thing called the Great Stupa of Dharmakaya that liberates the mind upon seeing because it stops your mind.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, you must come.
Yeah, I saw it years ago. And it stopped my mind, and it hasn't worked since.
Danger.
Buddhist humor. So, Michael, how would you explain what Drala is? This is interesting.
I'd say ask Dhi.
Hey, look at that. So why would you put
But
it? Why? Yeah, how would you put it?
yeah, I think what Dhi said is spot on.
Yeah.
We hold probably something in the range of 150 to 200 programs every year,
Wow.
secular and non-secular. You know,
I
some
had
of
no
them
idea
are
it was
about,
that many.
oh yeah, it's a lot of programs. And there's everything from kind of classic meat and potato Buddhist, you know, deep retreats, silent meditation, Vajrayana programs, other Buddhist traditions, various teachers, also things that are, you know, as Dhi was saying, more body oriented, like yoga or qigong, programs to get people out into the woods, programs on relationships. There's a huge range of different kinds of things that are presented here.
Yeah.
Some of them are rentals, some of them are hosted where we kind of co-create the programs.
So
You know,
you're
we
a
have
program center, a lot of programs that you host, a lot of outside programs you call rentals on
that's right.
600 acres. I remember back in the day, USA Today named you guys top 10 retreat centers in the US. And you know, Drala has been around for a little while, right?
52 years maybe now. Yeah.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
That's even older than me, which is hard to imagine.
It's a young sprog compared to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about, there's a transfer of power going on right now, right? What's going on?
Yes. Well, I got here in 2010 as the director of guest experience, and then became the chief operating officer. And then in the summer of 2012, on our return from being evacuated for the High Park fire, I became the executive director, and I've held that job since then. And so I'm stepping down in a little under 2 weeks on February 21st, and Dhi will be the new executive director. And I couldn't be more pleased. I think Dhi's going to do an amazing job.
I'm actually quite relieved and happy both. Because it's a really, like, either of you, explain your role as director. This is a big change. You know, it's like you're handing off a big, you know, pile of delicate china to a different person. What does the role entail?
Being executive director.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting because early in my time here, when I told them, you know, I'm going to be the executive director, I'm the executive director of a, you know, contemplative meditation center in the Rockies, and they'd be like, "Oh, that must be so calm and soothing," and you know, it's well, there are things. You know, a lot of it has been about taking us through various challenges. You know, we've evacuated for 2 fires. We had one fire actually burn right across the land.
Right.
And
when you say fire, you're not talking about like a little barbecue fire or something. You're talking about like
the
fire
Cameron Peak fire
through the land or around it.
Yeah, I think it was, you know, one of the biggest fires in Colorado in recorded history. So, you know, there's been
hundreds and hundreds of trees and dozens of smaller buildings. And
I think we lost 15 buildings.
Okay.
Depends on what you count as a building. Some of them are pretty small.
I know what you're
And
saying. Yeah.
yeah,
Cowboy trailers, you know.
yeah, heritage homes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we've done a lot of forest restoration work, thinning the forest to sort of pre-fire suppression days.
Mm.
And the firefighters felt this was a defensible location, so they poured a lot of resources in it and anchored the line for the Cameron Peak fire defense
Wow.
here.
I love
And
that.
the line held. You know, there were just a few fingers that went through our land into the neighbor's land, the scouts' land. But
Mhm.
basically, they were able to stop it here, but not until it had gone right across our land. I think it took that to kind of slow it down.
So
So we saved a lot of forest, but places where we hadn't been able to get to the mitigation yet, it's just cinders and sticks.
right.
So it was mixed.
Huge trees like just burned down and
Yeah,
toppled is
but we
really
saved a
humbling.
lot of forest as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The thinning of the forest is obviously not what this video is about, but the eco responsible work you guys did up there for decades, really, the fact that that helped save neighbors and hold the line with the firefighters' leadership and help, that's so
Mhm.
powerful and moving and wonderful.
It was something we were, proud of.
Yeah,
You
well
know,
understood.
and proud to be a part of a team. You know, we got tons of support in this work. You know, the various levels of government funded it. We worked with great partners, and we're part of a network of organizations and individuals who are, creating defensible spaces and trying to return to a healthy forest. So we're really proud that we're part of a broad network
Yeah,
in Colorado that's working that way to
I
restore
love
a
that.
healthy forest.
And Buddhists and spiritual types can be a little bit self-isolating sometimes. So I love that this is a way you can work with all your neighbors and connect. It's
It's
great.
great. Yeah.
Great. So why on earth, Dhi, do you want this job? Knowing what it entails, which is you have to have like 18 different skills every day, right?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. I was just thinking what Michael was talking about when he first landed here. I came to the land for the very first time in 2011, I believe. So it was right before Michael took over as the director. And I was living in Denver at the time. And just being here that one time, I felt like I was home in a weird way. And ever since then, I've longed for being here when I'm not here.
Mhm.
And so I paid attention to that. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to be in for a wild ride. And it's both an honor and sort of a scary proposition to take on this role.
Yeah,
But there's something hard to describe about this place that I just feel like I need to be here. You know that. You know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah. I think, as some of our readers know, but I spent like a fourth of my life up there up until the age of like um 28 or something. Up to 28 years old, I calculated like a fourth of my life was up at Drala, and almost none since, honestly, because I don't have a car. And but whenever I smell like that butterscotch smell that comes out of
Mm.
the red pine tree,
Ponderosa pine.
yeah, or we have one of these nights in Boulder where the sky gets huge. It's never as big as at Drala, but
Mhm.
it reminds me or the wind, when you're in a tent, like so up at Drala Mountain Center, often in summers, particularly, you might live in a sort of stand up, like civilized tent, not quite glamping, but like kind of halfway in between. And yeah, the feel of wind and just that feeling of being peaceful in nature, no matter all the chaos that's going on. There's so many gap moments
Mhm.
up at Drala that, yeah, I miss that. That kind of stuff is in my blood for sure,
Yeah.
or something.
And feeling like you actually are part of it, like you belong in the nature. That's that Drala feeling that
Mm.
people get a taste of it and then it's like, I'll be back. I want to come back soon.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for people who don't know, which is probably everyone, what does Drala mean? Either of you?
Do you want to give it a shot, Dee, or do you want me? Why don't you give it a shot?
Sure. For me, it's wakeful energy. So it's like when that breeze does come up and it's like, okay, I'm back in the present moment. Or the feeling of the sunlight on your skin or
The sage.
the smell of sage. Yeah. All of that stuff brings you right back to now,
Mhm.
which is a good place to be.
That's so funny. One of my quotes that I wrote years ago that we use all the time is now is a good place to be.
Well,
Mhm.
hey,
I always feel like 90% of what I write, like you can take the quotes off. Like I just learned all this stuff from, so I grew up in Buddhism. I grew up at Drala. I grew up around in Boulder.
Mhm.
Anyway, so yeah, I think there's so many questions, but what, Dee, going forward, what is your vision for Drala in terms of programming coming out of the pandemic? Not completely, it's still going on, by the way, but mostly out of it. What are the projects on a practical level?
mhm. Well, the good news is I feel super fortunate that Michael has handed off to me an organization that's in a pretty good space. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
And you
can do
couldn't
a
even
lot.
say that like a couple years ago, right?
Last
There's
year, it was
definitely been
challenging.
challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael. That was a very constructive way of putting it. There have been some challenges.
But like we were talking about with the environmental work that's been done, I really want to bring that forward. It's an important part of our mission and an intrinsic part of um, our responsibility as stewards of this land.
Mhm.
And one of the things I'm pretty excited about is we had a permaculture program here in October and had a bunch of different of the participants created permaculture designs for different areas of the land. And, it's just a way of working with the land in a way that's has a systems approach and, requires less effort and energy and resources. So I'm excited about moving forward with that.
So I'm a hippie in Boulder, so I know what regenerative is and permaculture is, but what does that stuff mean to you? Or, what does that mean in layman's terms?
Well, to me, it means working with the land in a way that is, respects and acknowledges how things are in nature rather than trying to make it
Right,
more like a man-made thing.
right,
Working with shapes of the land in a way that makes sense rather than, bulldozing it into something else.
right.
Um,
Retaining water, getting rid of
exactly.
water where you don't want it, retaining it where you do want it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like working with how nature works, which is a radical new concept
Right.
instead of
And
just, yeah.
so in keeping with that, Lama Dorje is planning to come and visit a couple of times. He's a Tibetan Lama who's based in Costa Rica and also does a lot of teaching in South America.
Mm,
But a lot of his work centers on regenerative Dharma. So this idea of how whatever is within us, we manifest outward, and that's how we got into this current climate crisis.
mm.
And so the way to heal the earth and to ameliorate the climate issues that are going on is to work from within with the five Buddha families, the three poisons, and to transmute those in a way that we create a healthier environment. So I feel like that's a really good
Mm.
partnership for us
Yeah,
moving.
so interesting. It sounds like you'd be a good interview.
He
Yeah.
would be. He and his translator, Carolina.
Okay.
They'll be coming up twice this year.
Huh.
And they have some interesting things to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Because I mean, the
I think,
Karmapa, like there's some
sorry,
Buddhist teachers who have been amazing in terms of climate and then our environment,
yeah.
but most often I don't feel like, Buddhism is good at Buddhism and life and sanity and kindness, but not always talking about, the climate crisis or what we can do to improve things. What were you going to say, Michael?
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking to that, I think one of the moments that we're in is the meeting of two wisdom traditions, Eastern and Western, and
Mhm.
they each have their strengths, and integrity and dignity and insights, and some of the work around, social realities, around equity and inequity, power dynamics. Some of these things coming out of the humanistic Western tradition are very insightful and marry up really well with Dharma, I think.
Mm. I
They
love
give
that.
to each other, they inform each other. And so that's part of what Drala Mountain Center is, and hopefully will become even more of. The whole idea of regenerative, using the tools of the Dharma, and the understanding and teachings to then dig into some of the systems analysis that comes out of the West, understanding how, better than net zero to actually be part of a regenerative
Yeah.
environment that's creating in itself beyond just reaching kind of a neutral point of,
Yeah.
that's taken quite a while to understand. And it's an exciting part of our reality that we're trying to develop despite the challenges we face. We're still understaffed, as so many organizations are, and
How many
that creates
staff are at
challenges.
Drala right now? Or generally? I know it varies probably a bit.
About 25 in total, if you count offline staff.
And you'd
Whereas
like to be,
normally we
yeah.
might be at 50 or more.
Yeah. And that's hard. People have to work hard, and it creates tensions. And, one of the things I think Dee's, um, going to be really good at is working with the staff, um, and building a staff culture and community. That's been difficult.
Dee, what are you going to miss most about Michael and what he brings to the table?
Well, lots of things, but I love Michael's soft voice and gentle presence, but also um, a sense of his sense of rightness and uprightness. So, Michael, you're welcome on the land anytime, and I
Thank you.
might be calling you a lot.
I'll
Have you on
pick up the
speed
phone.
dial.
Yeah.
We'll clip that and just send you that like little GIF excerpt, and you just
Mhm.
flash that at the gate.
Yeah. Got it.
And
Click, 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 click.
free, I think free lodging and food and
Well,
forever.
thank you. I like the way this is going.
Yeah. So and Michael, sort of the same question. What are you most looking forward to in terms of Dee's qualities in her leadership as director?
Uh, so I think Dee brings a groundedness, both personally and in the Dharma. Dee is a teacher, a Buddhist teacher, and has taught a lot of programs, and brings that sort of informed, processed quality to her work. Dee cares immensely about people, and I think that just really makes a huge difference. She brings in a freshness and a determination. I think there's a quality that I found really important, which is, recognizing that, it's a really rare and powerful opportunity to have a job that, demands everything and more, and is worthy. Is profoundly worthy, brings together, your professional skills, your personal aspirations, your spiritual journey, and to have all of that in one thing, that's a real gift. People have meaningful lives in many, many ways.
Yeah.
This is such a coming together of those things. And I think Dee really appreciates that. And that informs her work. So all of those qualities of the kindness, the intelligence, the experience here, having her own mind and vision for the place, I think all of these come together to make me really excited about Dee's leadership.
I love that you said like yoking your, I think of yoga, which means to yoke, like, binding your or joining your skills, like joining heaven, earth, and man. We talk about that in terms of leadership or the king or queen principle, but maybe a lot of that didn't make sense too. But, basically just bringing together leadership, vision, details, your skills, people skills, the everyday work with integrity and mission. That's such a rare opportunity.
Yeah. That heaven, humanity, and earth, it's the vision, the ground, the skills, the professional capacity, and then making it human. Dhi is a vulnerable person where vulnerability isn't just being a martyr, but it's open to feedback from the world and an eagerness to grow. And that's a really special quality.
Especially in leadership. Yeah, can be rare at the
really important
top of the leadership mountain. Dhi, you were raising your...
Yes, well, I wanted to share another aspect of what I'm looking forward to, and it has its roots very much in Michael's experience as the director, and that is from the Cameron Peak Fire and our experience. We were so grateful to the wildland firefighters who came and helped us. So Michael had this idea of, we want to thank the firefighters, and how can we do that? Well, what we do best is to bring people together and host them. And maybe we could, offer some training in working with your mind and, mindfulness skills, meditation, and that sort of thing. So from that kernel of the idea, we've already organized a couple of grants, and we're starting to do some planning around hosting wildland firefighters here. Yeah, so we're very excited about that. And that's the first phase. And then eventually we hope to expand it to include wildfire survivors, including people from this area that have been affected by the Cameron Peak Fire, as well as the Marshall Fire that happened in the Boulder area.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, the last group of folks that we'd like to host are climate change activists who might need some respite and rejuvenation after, being on the front lines. And, we hope to host them as well for a similar kind of gathering.
Well, as you probably know, I've interviewed, probably like 3/4 of the leading climate experts at this point. There's always new ones every year, especially the younger generation, which I have interviewed less actually, but always happy to help with that, because that's a passion of mine, and I feel like has been lacking generally, which is fine. Any community doesn't have to do everything, but I think growing up in the Buddhist community, I've already said this, but we haven't always thought about our planet, and we haven't certainly walked the talk in terms of our sourcing of things and all that. So I definitely, I think, the integrity, the timely integrity, not just integrity, I've seen from Drala Mountain over the last years has been so impressive and quite unique in our community.
We still have a long way to go, to be clear. There's a lot that we need to learn and still do before we can say anything about being an example. The only example I think we can be is of, an organization that's facing significant challenges and still trying to learn into how to do it.
Totally.
How to be
It's such a healthy attitude, though. People are always like, I'm vegan and whatever. People are like, yeah, but you do, I don't know. People just always want to argue and say you're hypocritical. And you're like, yeah, I am wildly imperfect. Perfect is not my goal. Trying and caring is my goal.
Yeah.
Or is my now, So I don't expect you all to be perfect, but I would be very cheered and inspired if I saw real efforts from the earth up. And in some areas you are excellent, like already with the fire mitigation and working with the land, going back to Jim Tolstrup, and it's pretty cool.
The land, the forestry work, we've now done 2 phases, and the organizations we worked with have brought foresters from around the world here to see what it's like to work with an exemplary partner, as they put it. So, I can say we have walked that talk and made some decent headway in that area.
And I think the other area, Dhi, I almost thought you were going to say it, would be so inspiring, just to give you more work, would be, the same kind of program for firefighters you're talking about, but for nurses, because that entire industry is so burned out and needs, there's a lot of mental wellness talk in that industry. Like, how do we deal with this? We're not just dealing with, a healthcare system that's wildly imperfect, but we're dealing with a pandemic, and we're dealing with stress and burnout, and we're dealing with people not even believing the sickness they have is real. There's a lot for them to take home without often any resources.
Exactly. And funny you should mention that, but since we've reopened after the pandemic, I'd say a good 45 to 50% of participants who come to our meditation programs are in the helping profession. So,
Wow, that's so
some
good.
are nurses or docs or therapists, but
Oh,
Significant. Yeah.
so good. And yeah, if we could have grants and make bigger programs specifically for them, that would be amazing.
absolutely.
Yeah. The thing with starting with the wildland firefighters is there's a clear organic process,
Exactly.
that arose from gratitude.
Exactly.
And so when people say, why are you doing this? We can say, because we're grateful. You guys, like, we had a planning weekend, and one of the people that came was someone who'd been a firefighter here, and could talk about what he saw on that day. So to be able to say in person, thank you. And that's why we're doing this. That's meaningful in very clear ways. And so we're developing a certain amount of understanding of how to get grant funding, how to position grant proposals. This is a real powerful moment for us to understand how to develop these kinds of programs for people who do help other people.
I love it. So good. I'm sure, Michael, in some ways, it's like you've done this for so long. There's a great sense of relief at letting go of the weight and the reins. But at the same time, it's just such, like, from the outside, from the so-called civilized world, talking with you two, thinking of this Drala Mountain Valley, what a opportunity and special thing you guys are making happen.
Well, we want to see you here and host you.
Yeah, Michael was saying you're so great working with people and all that, and I was gonna say, like, so, Elephant Journal and myself are finally doing some retreats, and one of them will be at Drala, and working with UD. I was like nervous, not about you, but like, I know Michael, I know who I was talking with, and then I think I worked with you well before I knew you would be director, and just working with you has been like both a delight and completely straightforward. And I think you have that calligraphy up there, no big deal, like, or maybe it's a different
NBD
one.
at RMSC.
Yeah, there we go. NBD, no big deal. It's been really just totally professional and great. And I'm excited to do at some point, a summer retreat next summer.
It'll be awesome.
Well.
Yeah. So, maybe to wrap up, do you have any, I'm sure you've already downloaded for 1,000 hours, but do you have any kind of like ripcord advice? Like, when the going gets tough, what's your like little wisdom in the ear of Dhi when she's having one of those days?
Let's see. The thing I found most important. So I'm Aries, and I was a classic Aries, like dive in and hey, let's play. And so that's been my energy, and it's definitely been in a crucible here. And I think the most important simple distillation of the many times significant challenges have arisen is to kind of stop and take a breath, and then really look at what it is that's going on, and talk to people, understand the details as best you can without thinking that you've got it all, and then start to take it apart and say, okay, so if we do this and if we do this, and understanding how the dynamics work. And on some level that doesn't take an enormous amount of time, but that quality of kind of stop, assess, understand, and then co-create solutions. That's the biggest thing that I found is just made things workable that were otherwise like, how the heck are we going to do this?
It sounds so simple when you say it, Michael.
Well, the stopping part is simple, but it's almost the last thing we think of. Like, I know when I'm having Like today, I think I've had like 16 meetings or something, and I'm like 5 minutes late for every single one. And it's been okay. I've really enjoyed it. But there's a level of like, wow, stopping is a radical act. Like you don't think of doing it. But looking up and breathing is kind of a radical, simple, but not easy act.
Yeah, it's an act of leadership because people cue off of how you're responding to it.
Right.
And the more in that moment you can actually kind of ground and be a reference point, you know, and part of that is owning. It's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but let's take a moment to understand what it is we think we need to do.
Wow, let's get some good advice. Dhi, is that helpful? What do you think? You know, it's okay.
It is helpful.
Yeah.
It's also not the first time
Yeah,
you've
taking a
heard
minute.
it.
Yeah. Well, that was helpful for me. Yeah, Dhi, you're
Well,
breaking
you
up.
know,
Go ahead.
the person who founded our, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah. Chogyam Trungpa, he always referred to it as fresh start. So even if you're deep in the muck and things are going horribly wrong, you can always stop and have a fresh start.
Yeah. How do you deal, Dhi or Michael, with, you know, I know like my running a staff, which I guess is almost like a comparable size. We've had 34 staff for the last 5 years. And, you know, I think the work, the getting buried in work is okay. I can deal with burnout. I can deal, you know, I'm good at, I meditate, I stretch, I bike around, you know, I get my moments in, but the drama of personal relationships, including my own self-created drama, that's the hard one. You know, it's that extra like conflicty defensiveness stuff. How do you negotiate that from a dharma point of view, Dhi?
Well, I'm learning right now. I'm doing a lot of listening and not trying to jump to any conclusions, but just trying to be an empathetic listener.
So
Yeah.
good. You too. Well, I'm so proud and so happy and so grateful. And as someone who like more or less grew up alongside Michael, you know, in our, you know, in our wild and woolly, rabble rousing, rough edge days, which were never that dramatic, but you know, I've just seen you like take your seat. We talk a lot about taking your seat in Shambhala and Buddhism, and I've been grateful from like day one for your leadership and the fact that I don't feel concerned even 1% about Drala, which is so important to me with this handoff. Obviously, there's concerns and challenges every year for Drala, but you know, I think we're really looking forward to what's next, Dhi.
Very much so. I'm very excited.
Well,
I'm very
oh,
excited.
you are. You're getting out of there.
There's that.
Yeah. What's next for you, Michael?
Space. I want to have some mornings where I wake up and say, what am I going to do today?
Yeah. Well,
so
give me a call and we'll go for a long walk.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love to both of you, love to Drala, and I look forward to doing a program there, and such
Thank you,
a
Waylon.
pleasure to get to bring you two together during this handoff period.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much.